Like it reinstalled the USB. There we go. So I did this. So it's done this before. Hello, welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio. My name is Andrew. I'm your host of Indiepocalypse, the usually midday, depending if you're in the United States. Now late night if you're in the United States. Even later night if you're somewhere else around the world. I'm Andrew. I'm the host of the show. I'm also the creator and all that stuff about Indiepocalypse and all that. We have some game developers here for you tonight, as you usually do. My microphone did a thing where it reinstalled itself, so Discord or OBS was like, "Hey, where is that? I don't know where that microphone is. The one you're telling me about isn't the right one." So I had to tell which one that was the right one. Speaking of the right ones, we've got two guests here. Who you may know from issue. Okay. Can I do this off the top of my head? This game that I love to play. Issue 21. Where's my question? I have so many forms. I have too many forms. Oh, I was right. Issue 21. What a pro here. Of Indiepocalypse with Invasion of the Third Kind. It is. Sorry. C.A. McKinney and Nova Star. Hello. How are you both doing?
Hi. How are you? I'm good.
Doing all right.
I'm also doing good. So, before we start the show, kind of like into the important questions and all that kind, I have to ask you rather the most important question of any episode of Indiepocalypse Radio, which is: did Andrew remember to tell everyone that he was live? And the answer was no, he did not. But the second most important question is: how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Honestly, I just found it through the game jams, and I was trying to submit Invasion of the Third Kind to whatever I could.
Yeah.
And try to get some attention to it, because I'd made it the original 2-page for this like nothing little jam that was just to like show creativity and like give us an exercise in like game design, and I decided to give it a shot with the most ridiculous concept possible.
Yeah.
But apparently a lot of people liked it, so we started to push it into wherever we could.
And what is that concept for people unfamiliar? Because I mean, this is the zone of the super fans. But what if someone else in podcast land is like, I'm just going to randomly listen to this show later?
Well, the easiest way to put it is that Invasion of the Third Kind allows you to play an 80s teen stereotype trying to ward off an alien invasion in a small town in Indiana.
That's it. Very succinct, as you said yourself. And also worth knowing, if it wasn't emphasized or mentioned before, it is by the term 2-pager, this is a tabletop game. I know on Twitch people are very used to, video games and the like. Aside from like people with webcams and a lot of money, people do a lot of tabletop games on Twitch now too, I guess.
Yeah, there, YouTube, like it's actually kind of a growing like scene.
Yeah,
it's one I've even considered getting into with Invasion specifically, because we wanted to show how it was played and give some examples for stories and gameplay. Because honestly, at my table, it's been one of the more popular games we've played, and not even like by us pushing it. It was usually our friends wanted to play it.
Now,
so kind of supplanted D&D for us.
That's what I was going to ask. What was was your table primarily a D&D table previously, or D&D like your Pathfinders and those sorts of things?
My most recent table, yeah.
Okay.
I usually do the DMing, so I'm usually the one that's like planning everything, but I kind of just go with what the people want, and Nova actually wanted to get into D&D, so I started like setting up campaigns and stuff for him, and then we gradually brought in more people, and I'm building another one now, but that has nothing to do with game design so much as just like what we're doing in our free time. But before that, it was all like cyberpunk games and Vampire the Requiem, Vampire the Masquerade, stuff like that.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I've been designing games for as long as I've been playing them.
Now, when you say when you say cyberpunk, do you mean the genre, or do you mean like the uppercase cyberpunk game?
The genre. I preferred Shadowrun at the table,
Okay.
but I've played a little bit of Cyberpunk, and of course, I think at this point almost everybody's played Cyberpunk 2077. So
I've never played either. Nor
you haven't played Cyberpunk 2077?
no. The closest I've gotten to this whole, I've played Shadowrun on the Sega Genesis,
Oh, that's an old one.
and
Um,
also I think I played a little bit on the Xbox. That one that was like Counter Strike.
Ooh, that was bad.
It was a weird thing, but
Very bad.
I really like Shadowrun on the Genesis. But my our table, as it were, our digital table isn't much of a dice table. So Shadowrun, with its notorious volume of dice.
Oh yes, my 41 dice pool to kill somebody. That was a great day.
Yeah, we just kind of skirt around the need for dice, or play games without dice, or that sort of thing.
I don't really have that problem here because Cass before like we were in a relationship already had a bunch of dice, and we've now found out since doing role playing games that I'm a dice goblin. So we had an entire like glass vase that we had filled full of dice at one point. So
Now I gotta ask you of your true goblin stats. Do you own a dice tower to legitimize
No, not
all
yet.
rolls?
I keep bringing it up because he can't roll for like
Listen.
anything.
I have really bad luck
Yeah.
when it comes to dice. So a lot of my
Until you're derailing my campaign by killing the villain.
well, that was just a decision. Like that was a split decision. But anyway, that's a hugely different story. I eventually want to get a dice tower. It's more been like being in a space where like I can afford it.
Yes.
And find one that appeals to me. I've seen a few that I really liked, but none have really been like my style. So
Yeah, it seems like once you've got a dice tower, you're that's like one step above buying one of those just full on tables that folds open and has like a grid in it and everything.
I don't even want one that folds over. I want the ones that like have the dining room table on top of it, and you just take that off.
Oh yeah, that's the same kind of. That was the kind of thing I was talking about. I think some of them fold, but I'm from.
There are a few.
Someone I know has that one where you you pull the slots out, and then inside of it is your grid that you can theoretically use to like space out your combat, but in realistic, you wind up with, in my experience, you wind up with a bunch of players who don't want to navigate grids, and instead just draw all over the board and just kind of assume, are we close, near, far, mid range, and kind of,
Well, theater of the mind is important when it comes
Yes.
to role playing. Like, the idea of miniatures is great, and like I love them because it gives me the ability to visualize the characters that I'm making. But at the same time, like tabletop games tabletop role playing games specifically are probably like more communal because like we treat it as the story and we have that like visual aspect in our own minds as opposed on the table. Like a board game, you're gonna have a piece that you're moving around, but when you're seeing it in your mind, it brings us back to like that whole gathering around the fire, telling stories thing from like prehistory, and like role playing games are kind of the modern version of that.
Do you think they had obviously not the very codified Gygaxian style, but do you think they had role playing games centuries ago?
I wouldn't doubt that there was some form, like there was some like game that had rules and some way of determining success that was largely story based, because like that feels kind of like a primal thing for a lot of people. It's like we love stories, so to be able to do that, it's almost like playing pretend as a kid. Everybody had rules. You're not allowed to do this because that's the rule. You're not allowed to do that because that's the rule. No, you didn't hit me there. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is just like a more like defined, more succinct version. And while like Gygax and Dungeons and Dragons were like the huge push for that, like that came out of wargaming, and wargaming had to come out of somewhere.
Yeah, as it turns out, everything comes from somewhere. Nothing kind of spawns like fully formed into existence.
I was gonna say something similar along the lines of like, even like as kids, like me and my best friend, like we had no idea what D&D was because like I was a sheltered homeschooled pastor's kid. Like that's how sheltered I was. So like D&D was of the devil.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of chick tracks about that.
But me and my best friend would play pretend, and we would pretend to be like basically like spy kids.
Okay, I was getting scared. Thought you were going to be like you were a sorcerer, which.
Oh no, we were pretending to be like agents from like Spy Kids, and we gave ourselves like Spanish translations of our names. It was so ridiculous, but like we would go up against like these like bad guys that were just ridiculous, that like you would never see in like the movies and anything. But like I had already had like that imagination kind of like set that was like perfect for like role playing and everything.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Like I love doing that stuff.
Yeah, the yeah, because kids aren't usually, as you can imagine, for like your 8 to 13 demographic. A lot of times, playing your Spy Kids game and busting out a pen and paper in the middle of it to make sure you could properly do your thing, kind of disrupts the flow,
Yeah, no, it was literally just like there's the Crab King and his army. We have to defeat them because there's no real reason as a kid. It's literally
they're bad.
They're the bad guys, so we defeat them. And then we would like karate kick in this giant open field like at nothing, and like super punch and just throwing things that didn't exist at these invisible crab armies, and defeat them. Like it's just fun.
Yeah. So low budget LARPing is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Without an adult to come and say, no, you have to buy your beanbags and your foam swords and your.
No, just pretend. Like,
yeah.
As we're pretending anyways, so why not just pretend we have like things, or like have sticks and pretend that they're swords? Like,
yeah.
You don't have to have like these expensive things. I think that's something that's really special about like 2-page RPGs. I didn't even know they existed until Cass made up Invasion. And
wait till you hear about 1-page RPGs.
Yeah. It's insane. Like you can like fit so much there, and like just use like resources that you have, and like you can obviously expand on it, which is what like we're trying to do. At the time, we're kind of putting together like a monster manual sort of thing for the aliens that you can come across in the game. And but like the thing about like 2-page RPGs that are so special is it's kind of like you have the basics, like you have everything that you need on paper, and you can do more with it if you want, but like it's really like it has that creative like space, like you have the opportunity to add on.
I mean, even in its full version, Invasion isn't nearly as like rigid as D&D, because like if you look back on 3.5 with D&D, like there was an entire chapter on grappling rules.
Yeah.
And like I know we've come a long way since then, and like the bigger manufacturers are starting to embrace a more rules light approach, but even then, like they aren't really doing it up to the level of like Luke Westaway, who released Gravity Rip. Love that game. And it's very rules light, because it's all about cinematics, and that's what we did with Invasion. Is we went with this like cinematic approach. Like you don't roll for initiative. Combat isn't combat. Like you're fighting aliens sometimes that are like 9-foot tall lizard monsters. Like how is a teenager going to fight that hand to hand? Like you're not.
You're right.
It's more about thinking through a narrative approach to getting out of combat, which I've done in so many games that I've made. and what we're doing with like the full version of Invasion now.
Yeah, because for traditional, because they're from war games, don't necessarily in their systems offer like easy solutions to undefeatable foes, other than like they have really high numbers.
Yeah,
but they're not like.
I have a horde of orcs going up against space marines, Daka Daka, pretty much.
Like, yeah.
Instead, with ours, like for anybody that's actually played it, like you'll know that like there are weaknesses and strengths to every alien, and as long as you know the weakness, you can defeat them. Like our very first test was against the original version of like the Drachnol, which were like these jellyfish monsters that, if they were dried out, they died.
Yeah,
we've changed that. Oh no, we've changed it to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was originally high-pitched noises that caused problems.
Right, but that's very much like the flow of that kind of like 80s sci-fi kids movie, which is like.
Oh yeah, there's always like some ridiculous weakness that like it could be something as simple as like a specific chemical found in hairspray or something like that.
Right.
Like
way to call me out on the exec.
No, but it's cool because like you have those cheesy things where like like let's say like this like 80s girl who has her hair like up a mile high like at all times, who carries around hairspray in her freaking bucket purse, like sprays it like out of like reaction like at an alien, and then it just fizzles out and just dies. Like that's the kind of stuff that like 80s movies would pull.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's just random chance, and you're just like, oh shoot.
You just described like the back half of the second arc of the second act of any 80s movies. Like, oops, we accidentally just found our solution.
Yeah.
And now how do we
stuff like the faculty, which was a big inspiration on how I created the game. Like they just randomly found out, they get dehydrated, they die.
Yeah.
And then they started testing drugs on each other.
Different approaches for different teens.
Exactly. That was a 90s movie, though.
Yeah. We lost our innocence. We've kind of...
So far.
We lost our innocence in the 90s, and then we slowly started to recover from the trauma.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. And now we're realizing how bad it is.
It's all things are pendulums, endlessly swinging back and forth across a single scale,
Yeah.
We're on a train to degradation once again. The Puritanism has had its time in the sun.
Truth.
But do you have like a favorite, or favorite maybe perhaps not like the right word, but like a go-to sort of like what is not even like your favorite, but like a prototypical, you think, kind of like 80s, or not even 80s even, but so teens against the unknown.
Oh, let's see. Stranger Things is the first thing that comes to mind.
Stranger Things, Scooby-Doo, honestly too.
The Faculty's definitely on the list.
What else?
So I would get skinned for saying this, but I haven't seen the Goonies.
I haven't seen that either.
Neither have I. I haven't seen anything you've mentioned. Okay, no, I watched
Gremlins, though.
I saw Scooby-Doo.
Stranger Things?
I've never seen Stranger Things.
You gotta watch that, dude. Like, it is legit. Like, I know that it was, like, super, like, hyped up, and, like, people might think it's overhyped, but, like, it's really good. Like, I cannot wait for the newest season to come out.
My most experience is there's someone with a board, and they you make a selection on one side or the other. I think it's something about Steve. And I was at a convention and someone told me to ask me a question, I think, about Steve, and he was either one thing or the other, and I went to pick one thing, and like, are you sure? So then I picked the other thing, and they seemed happy.
I don't know what that could have been referencing.
I think they were wearing a sailor's outfit.
Oh, yeah, that's his uniform for the ice cream shop he ends up working at the latest season.
Yes.
That's not true. Somebody has a spike bat, and is Naomi Watts in it?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Steve had a spiked bat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's spiked bat, but Naomi Watts wasn't in it.
No.
Oh, wait, so who is the actress in it then?
Winona Ryder.
Oh, Winona Ryder. Okay.
And she's literally so freaking good in it.
Why am I crossing the wires? Now I've got to find out the reason why I'm crossing the wires when I'm watching Winona Ryder. I'll figure it out someday. Which one of them is in Mulholland Drive? That's
Naomi Watts.
Okay, that's why I think I'm confusing them. I don't know why I'm confusing them in that very specific kind of way, but anyway. Okay, so the faculty. So I learned, I kind of saw posters for it, and I would see it in like the theater, or not the theaters, but like in the movie store when I was growing up. And then I learned like much later in life that it's an alien movie. What are the aliens?
It's one of those self-aware horror films, sci-fi horror films at least, in like the vein of Scream, directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Okay.
And it's got this like huge cast now that like we look back on it, because like Elijah Wood was in it. I'm trying to remember Jordana Brewster and Josh Hartnett and like Famke Jensen. Like there were a bunch of people in this movie.
What? I did not know Rodriguez directed that movie.
Yes, and it's about a group of teenagers, just random teenagers that aren't really friends but kind of know each other, that come into contact with an alien invasion in their like small town. But it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers type.
Okay.
So like you don't really know who the aliens are. It could be literally anybody.
I have seen that.
And like they find out during the movie that the aliens come from like this water world, and if they dry out, they die. So they have to consume an excessive amount of water. And one of the main characters, played by Josh Hartnett, makes drugs to sell at school, which is primarily just caffeine. And that's diuretic. So it dries them out, and they just start using that to kill them all.
Perfect. Now I know all about the faculty. I'm also looking at Robert Rodriguez. You guys, there were like weird things in his filmography that I didn't know about.
Oh yes, Robert Rodriguez is actually a very hit or miss director. And he has a lot of weird stuff in his filmography. Not all of it was great.
No,
some of it was.
He seems like he's got two dials that he goes on. Spy Kids.
Either I'm making films for my children, or I made Sin City.
Yes, I'm doing Grindhouse movies, or I'm making kids action movies.
Spy Kids.
Oh, wait, Spy Kids is that too?
Robert Rodriguez.
Yo, that's nuts. We've come full circle.
Yes.
Continuity.
I think I always think about like how he made what was like his budget he made. Like it was like a couple grand or whatever that he originally made El Mariachi on like.
Yep.
I got
he
a blood.
Told that story to us like it was something to live up to in film school. That he sold his body to science in order to make his movie because he was passionate. And I'm like, I think that actually is probably a bigger indicator that our society's kind of messed up.
Yes. I mean, I think the one positive takeaway from that is that you can actually make movies on a very low budget, not necessarily not the part where you have to sell all your blood to make them.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kevin Smith was notorious for doing similar things. Like he would stay up, 20-something hours a day and only get like about an hour or so of sleep, just working on Clerks, I think it was. And he spent his entire life savings on that.
Yeah, that's... But, I mean, we named 2 people. How many other people also did that? And we will never know.
Yeah, exactly. That's the scariest thing about those stories. Like, yes, you could have all the passion, you could have all of pour your heart and soul into it. You could have big stars in it, and pour every single thing you have, including all of your money and savings, and it still could flop. It could still be known as one of the most horrible movies. It might even not even make it to the big critics because of the initial reviews and everything.
Right. Well, I mean, at least if you get bad enough, if you get the right kind of terrible movie, then you right, you fall into another market. You and Breen are just chilling, making your weird movies.
Uwe Boll,
Yeah.
Wiseau, like all these directors that made movies that were so bad that people just have to watch it.
I don't know. I don't know if Uwe Boll is watchable. I was at a hotel once and we were watching, like, we put on hotel TV and it was House of the Dead, I think, and it was just like
That
bad.
wasn't even his worst movie.
It was just bad, and I like bad art a lot. I think there's a lot of beauty to like, very amateurish stuff that like.
Yeah.
Especially when like they feel unburdened by the understanding of how to make art.
Yeah, exactly. Like the simplicity of like some of the stuff that you see in amateur art is just like I love it. I wish I could get it back, but now I'm at the point where I'm like trying to do these like super detailed things and I'm not quite there.
Yeah.
And so like you can see what I'm trying to do, but it's not reaching its goal. But it's also like not simple enough to be like quite amateur art.
Yeah, but I mean amateur art is like a very dangerous line to tread.
Yeah.
Because the second you kind of realize you're doing it, it kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Because then you lose like the beauty of, oh wow, this person is like aware of movies, but they're not quite sure how you actually make them. So all these shots are really weird and confusing, and like nobody shoots movies like this.
The funniest part about that is I think that also applies to like game designer and
Yeah.
creative thing, because I remember the very first role-playing game I tried to design was a D100 system.
Right.
Where you had
so many
to hit
options.
the exact number in order to actually hit something. Because I thought that was a brilliant idea. I have to swing at this rat. I have to roll a 99.
What happens if you roll a 1 through 97 or a 100?
Nothing. You miss. It was basically Morrowind.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful game, though.
No, and see, that's the thing, is like there is that, like you can look back on it and go, wow, simpler times. When I was trying to be an edgy, grimdark game designer who made things that were realistic. Nowadays, I'm like, no.
That's not fun.
No, I mean, I went realistic with like Lost Horizons, which was this steampunk game that I was working on a while ago, where combat can literally end in one turn.
Yeah.
It is physically possible for this guy to shoot you in the face and you die, because that's what happens when you get shot in the face. So the game emphasized trying to not get into combat, trying to talk your way out of it, trying to like avoid it. But if you had to do it, you had to be good at it.
I played an OSR styled, I forget the exact game it was, but with friends, and so, me in particular, I don't know why, but I had like across our PlayStations, I had like 8 or 9 characters because I would die almost once a session.
Oh no.
And I would just rename myself as I'm the same class. I just would append my title as if I was I'm the 4th, now I'm the 5th.
That's what I would do.
Because I'm not
like John Doe the 2nd, John Doe the 3rd, John Doe the 4th.
Yes.
John Doe the 8th.
Yeah, and I think it happened once in like a session where I died at the very beginning of the session, so I had to roll up a character within the session itself.
That sucks.
It's a beauty though when your characters are so expendable and you know you're never gonna live. There's a weird
there's a comfort to it.
Yeah.
Which is actually something that I did in a different game.
I don't like... I'm at the opposite side of the spectrum. I get very attached to my character. My character is literally my baby. And, like, if he dies, I will die. Like, I'm super emotionally attached to characters. So, like, it's really, really hard for me.
Make sure your
Which
baby...
is why, if they die, they have to serve a narrative purpose.
Yeah.
At least in Invasion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... the beauty of like the narrative. Yeah, I guess it depends a lot how like like tied into the narrative it all is, because sometimes it's like, well, this is like when you're just like adventurers spelunking into dungeons, sometimes your spelunking adventures can be a little interchangeable, or you expect to be turnover in such a dangerous profession. But
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things that comes with a lot of like tabletop role playing games is the luck of the dice. It's one of those things that separates like the fireside storytelling from role playing games.
yeah,
Is you roll poorly in a role playing game, you die. Now, Invasion doesn't have that problem because Invasion's all narrative. Like you're not really rolling to fight. The rolls are meant to determine like how well you did it, like this thing, but you're never really going to fight anything.
yeah, because it's usually like a you don't win until you win state, in those
Yeah.
sorts of stories. There's like it's a, I mean, there's of course your last moment of peril, where your hairspray can rolls underneath something,
Yeah.
and what could you possibly do?
Or when the star quarterback for the team decides he's going to grab all the weapons from the police armory, run outside, and yell that he's a four-time state champion, just to draw in all the aliens so he can shoot them and buy enough time for you to like conjure up the solution.
Yeah,
That's a specific event that actually happened at our table.
it's unrecognizable from an event you could have been describing from a film of the time.
Exactly.
That's the. It's literally like an 80s movie. Like, I think that's the thing I like most about it, is that it's so fun and it just feels like what it's supposed to feel like. Like, it doesn't feel like any of like the role-playing games that like I had been a part of like before, because I'd been a part of literally like the first session of 3 different role-playing games before I got to like actually do a full one.
And were those like rules heavy role playing games too?
They were D&D. They were all D&D.
Okay.
And they were like the newest edition and everything.
Because in those, did you even get to play in the first session?
Yeah, like it was. I mean, I had a fight in all of them, but like it wasn't really. We didn't like get far in the story.
Right.
It was honestly kind of tragic with like the first 2 games that I was a part of. It was the same group of quote unquote friends.
Oh.
Who ended up not like catering to like my schedule.
Okay.
They kind of just met up without me. Just decided, oh well, we're deciding we're just gonna continue on with the story instead of waiting for you for when you get to show up.
Yeah.
So that's it sucks with that kind of stuff.
I feel like that happens like a lot. Like unless you like really have a singular crew that kind of like is like all or nothing. You're like, either you can accommodate everyone's schedule or you can't accommodate a couple people and then things slowly fall apart. We also, when we're missing people, either just forget that they're there in the world or just play something different.
Yeah.
But that's trickier if you're like playing D&D, because then you need to, they miss on the levels or they miss the story, or we can't just roll up another D&D session.
We've had something similar happen with our most recent invasion adventure with our table, because our table actually hasn't gotten together in like months.
Yeah.
Because of everything happening and just schedules and everything. But we had our first time where we were going to do episodes instead of just one game, like go and done, with Invasion. Like we were going to do it kind of like a series. And it was actually like going really well and it seemed really promising, but we just couldn't get together for that second episode.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. I definitely want to do it again at some point.
Yeah, it can be. Even with like everyone going, well, I guess we're not going to meet up physically anymore. It can still be. You're like, oh wait, schedules are still tricky to line up.
Exactly.
Even though people don't even need to be in the same state or country anymore. But
it's also crazy to think about.
Yeah. No, I've talked to people all over the world. It's the beauty of technology.
Right.
But there
Never
is.
Could have imagined anything like this when I was little.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't. I predated everyone owning cell phones. I mean, not even smartphones, just the cellular phones.
Yeah.
The idea of don't text me because it costs too much money.
I remember the 56K modem, so.
Oh, yes. No, I don't know.
10 minutes to load a picture.
But when you get that picture, it's all worth it.
Yeah, sometimes it wasn't.
Now I've got them fading across the screen as I stream it out. I've got multiple pictures. I've got like 3 pictures. I've got a moving picture. Unheard of.
Yeah.
I remember trailers being things you had to like download, like a 180p thing, so you could watch it. Because I don't know, there weren't web players on every single website. But yeah, we're living in a technologically faster time.
Yeah, even back when I had my first I had a DeviantArt page way back when.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of friends on there, and one of them was from Ecuador, and the only thing I had ever heard about Ecuador was from years ago when a missionary went over to Ecuador and he ended up getting killed by the cannibal tribes that were there, and then his wife ended up it was a bunch of missionaries, and then their wives went there and actually continued the mission successfully. It was Jim Elliot and Elizabeth Elliot was the woman I was thinking of, but that was all I had heard. So literally my only understanding about Ecuador at the time was that they're still in that tribal state.
Yeah,
so I was 14 and I meet my friend Luis, and he said he's from Ecuador, and I'm like, you guys have internet there? and he has cars and stuff, and I think the funniest thing that ever happened, and he still will make fun of me to this day for this, but Friday nights was pizza night at my family's house.
Yeah.
I said I gotta go, my family's pizza is ready, and he just sent a message that was pizza. And I was like, oh, it's this bread that's in a circle, and it's got tomato sauce and cheese, and you can put toppings on it, with sausage, pepperoni. And he started laughing. I know what pizza is. I just wanted to hear you explain it. But I really believed he didn't know what pizza was.
Yeah, it starts out people. The U.S. likes to paint a very specific portrait of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And now, important question. I think you accidentally stumbled upon one of life's great mysteries, and that's why is Friday Pizza Day?
Yeah, I don't know. So for me and my family, because I was a pastor's kid, Friday night was the night that we had our kids club at our church.
Okay.
So pizza night was just an easy thing. We could either get pizza, we order it, but normally we would just get it from the store frozen and then bake it. But it was nice, quick, easy. Everyone likes it. Everyone looks forward to it. But that's why it was always pizza night for us.
Nova, I will tell you something Saturday. About as a kid who went to school. It was also pizza day at public school.
Really?
Yes.
It was also tacos on Tuesday.
Yes.
We had Taco Tuesday every once in a while.
That's a crime. You need to have Taco Tuesday every Tuesday.
No, I will tell you, as an adult who no longer goes to school, I had pizza last Friday. And most Fridays, it's just part of my life routine that I can't explain.
Maybe it's just like one of those things, like it's like celebration, like, yeah, you made it through the week. Here's some pizza.
Yeah.
Like, everyone likes pizza. If you don't like pizza, you're wrong. Or you're not eating the right kind of pizza.
Yeah, it's so versatile. You don't even have to put sauce on it.
I literally had, there was this friends and family pizza buffet, was what it was called, like, in my neighborhood. It only existed for a few years, but a friend of mine's dad owned it. And it was really cool because it was like all you can eat buffet of like different kinds of pizza.
Yeah.
And one of those kinds of pizza happened to be like dessert pizzas that had like stuff like chocolate pudding on it. Like they obviously like didn't make it like bread, like they had like a kind of like almost like pie crust kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was like so interesting like to see like them using like that same format but for like different kinds of food. So like you can even find like vegetarian, vegan pizza. Like
yeah,
you can, like make anything into freaking pizza.
I'm pretty sure just but scant moments before this show, I had like a slice of like what I presume was a cauliflower crust pizza.
That's cool.
And you can just I was also, believe it or not, I was watching VODs of AGDQ and they were talking about dessert pizzas. And I was like, a dessert? Now I'm extra thinking about dessert pizzas and like where I can get a dessert pizza.
That's so weird. Like that you saw that like randomly, and then I was talking about it too.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I think about that like a lot, and how much of these things, how many. I think there's a point in most people's lives where you think about coincidence like on a serious level. Like you really just sit down and you ponder the nature of coincidence. And it's like,
oh yeah,
is this really a coincidence, or are there these coincidences happening constantly? I'm just never thinking about them.
I don't know. I've always been a firm believer of like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like things that I see, and like hear and like patterns and everything, like I take note of it. Like it's there for a reason.
Where can I get it? Ooh, okay, I can. No, that's Yelp is letting me down. This says excellent pizzas and desserts. Nope.
Boo.
And I can tell you for certain that Domino's. Wait, does Domino's have a dessert pizza?
I don't know.
Now I was gonna make that bold claim that of course they don't, but maybe they do. I always joke about lava cakes and how I'm never going to buy one because they're like $7.
So good though.
I'm pretty sure Domino's does actually.
Dessert pizzas.
At least
I know like Papa John's does. It's like a giant cookie though. But isn't that what dessert pizza really is? Just a giant cookie?
No, it's like this it's like a specific kind of like dough that's kind of like pizza dough but kind of like pie crust almost.
Yeah, probably like kind of like the like a cheesecake dough crust.
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that. Actually, maybe more like not really like cheesecake dough. Because cheesecake dough is like a graham cracker kind of crumbly kind of bit.
I'm looking. Where can I? Okay, this is gonna have to be something I can solve at some point in my life. Is getting a dessert pizza. I'm going to. You know what? Maybe I can get a dessert pizza when I going out to the western side of the state in a couple months. We made trip. We've so fun. We've made like plans for like, oh yeah, this concert's like in mid-April. Everything will be fine by April. We saying this 6 months ago. Like we'll just buy the tickets. Also because I assume the band themselves were thinking, oh yeah, 2022.
That's our year.
It'll be good, but I mean, it's a seated show. It's a Godspeed You Black Emperor show, so it's not like there's mosh pits or anything. There's no huge crowds. It's like people sitting in seats.
Yeah, that might be pretty good.
So I imagine it's not that bad. I'm taking all the stuff they'll put into my blood to make me not get COVID.
Oh yeah.
whatever.
I got my booster shot.
Yeah,
we both did on the same day, actually.
I'll take any more of them. I'm feeling So I have a question for the both of you. Have either of you gotten sick at all?
Like
any kind of
the virus, or
not even COVID, just like a flu or a cold.
I get like a cold like every year. I also get strep pretty much every year. I'm a singer, and I end up like doing some pretty gnarly stuff to my throat, unfortunately. But when I got the second shot of the original dose, it was my first experience having like an actual like flu symptoms.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what like body aches like felt like.
Okay.
But to me, like when I got the second shot, it felt like I had like these like surges of like electricity or like energy in like specific parts of my body, and it just like I hated it.
Yes, the flu can feel like my body will never not be like this. I'm stuck like this forever.
It feels super, super hopeless.
And then you're done in like a day. Yeah. The same thing happened with me with like my second dose, and then also my booster was like, oh, I feel bad, I'm gonna go to sleep, and then I woke up like 10 hours later. I'm like, oh, I feel fine now.
Yeah.
See, I had COVID last year.
Oh, that's not a good one.
I got it in November, and mine wasn't too bad, because I didn't have really any of the comorbidities that made it bad.
Even though you were snapping me saying that you thought you were gonna die.
Well, that was for different reasons. Like that was more related to medication withdrawal.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because I had COVID and had to isolate. But it was the shots for me. Like the first shot knocked me out for a couple days. Like I just felt overall crappy. The second shot we got like one of the worst migraines I've ever had, and yet we were still making each other laugh while watching Friends. I felt like I was dying, but hey, at least I was gonna die happy. And then the booster sucked. I hated the booster. I don't want to ever repeat that, and I'm probably going to have to in 6 months because nobody will wear a mask.
Right. Yeah, I had a worse time with that than I did with the actual second dose of the vaccine.
Yeah. I ended up getting, like, I never had the actual flu, and I found that out because of, like, the COVID shot, because I'd never felt body aches before. But I've had the stomach flu multiple times.
Okay.
Like, so it's like similar symptoms to the flu, like, but it's literally just, you know, what you would think with like stomach, just like fever and like constantly throwing up.
Oh yeah, that's that real treat.
Yeah, I had that. I was working at a Philly pretzel factory at the time. And I got it on the night before New Year's Eve. I was scheduled to work on New Year's Eve, and I couldn't come in because I was throwing up all night. It was awful.
I haven't been sick at all since March 2020. Not nary a cold, and it feels great, honestly.
I had strep like a month or two ago. I thought it was COVID.
Well, of course, because you think everything's COVID now.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little sleepy.
Like, sniffly nose, COVID.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
coronavirus.
That's me. I'm feeling a little sleepy lately. I wonder if it's COVID.
Yeah.
Well, we have 2 cats and a dog, and I constantly feel like I have a hair in the back of my throat.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's a sign I might have COVID.
Oh yeah, of course, right. Not the animals. No, yeah, because it's that WebMD classic of, oh, turns out every illness has headaches, stress, fatigue, So it's kind of like whichever one you want.
I have this weird lump on my arm. Cancer.
Yes, exactly.
Don't even get me started on that. I went to doctors during the pandemic to try to get a migraine disorder diagnosis for my migraine disorder.
Yeah.
And the very first thing they said was, you might have a tumor.
Yeah.
Don't tell somebody like me I might have a tumor. I'm supposed to think I might have a tumor. That's my job.
Yeah, right.
I'm the one who looked at WebMD. If I might have a tumor, you better have already done 4 tests just to make sure I have a tumor.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Whoever I have trusted at this point where it's like, nope, I'm going to just not assume that I have the worst possible disease, and like, I got weirdly good at like identifying Lyme disease, considering I had it somehow I caught it 3 times, I think.
Wow.
And like. So, like, the second time, I'm like, oh, this feels familiar. And I looked around, like, where's my rings? And I found it. And I'm like, yeah, there we go. I have Lyme disease. So
that sucks.
I call my doctor and go, I have Lyme disease. And it's like, here's some pills. Don't go out in the sun. And I go, thanks. It's like, it was only really bad the first time because it's like, you're super fatigued and you have a massive headache, I think, is how I felt. And then you're like, oh, there's rings all over me.
Were you able to work with that? Or... No, because I know someone who had Lyme disease for a while, and she had to leave work for a long time.
I caught it on a vacation, or it manifested during a vacation. So like I basically spent that whole vacation in bed.
That sucks.
But I mean, it was also I was younger, and it was a vacation in like the woods. I'm like I don't want to go in the woods. I want to be in my home playing video games. I don't want to spelunk nature. And now I'm like, wow, what if I lived in the woods away from everything?
Yeah.
And I could spelunk nature, except there are mountain lions, and they're no good.
I think the closest thing I could have like to that, like to kind of like compare is like, and this is like the closest thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like super, like it's disappointing in a lot of ways, but I was going on like some kind of like beach trip or whatever, and this was before I came out as trans male, and ladies listening will totally understand this, especially like if you grew up without like knowing like how to like use tampons, because for me like they were just never comfortable. I always used pads.
Right.
So I ended up getting my period right before we were leaving for vacation, which meant for like at least the first like 3 days it was like no swimming. It freaking sucks.
Yeah.
And especially like because my period symptoms have always been a lot more severe than a lot of ladies, which I'm totally looking forward to that, like going down the more I get on testosterone. I'm a month down already, but like it was just constantly just that the cramps were just so overwhelmingly bad when I was younger, especially.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to like the parts of our body that are like I don't know, like good for us or whatever, but are just very unfortunate and obnoxious and painful.
Well, like I was raised Christian, and like I still believe that. Like I definitely am not the stereotypical Christian person that you would think of.
Right. Christianity is a broad. It's not the worst of, the mega churches and the like.
Yeah. I'm not out to like, convert all of my friends and family and whatever, and Like I'm literally just like living a life like the way that I feel like Christ would.
Right, which
and,
I assume is probably most Christians.
Yeah, it's literally Christian. Like it was actually it's fascinating the the language behind like how it came together was the word Christian was a kind of like a mockery kind of thing. Like everyone who was, you know, a follower of Christ after he died and rose again and ascended and whatever, you know, they called them little Christ, which is what Christian like translates to. Um, if you go back far enough in the
Yeah.
I can't remember the word. I can't, etymology.
Etymology. Yes. Okay.
If you go back far enough in the etymology, but they just kind of took that on. You're like, yeah, we are like, you know, little versions of Christ, like that kind of stuff. Like Christ Junior is basically what it is.
Yeah.
So like, true Christians, like that's what you go by. But anyway, when it comes to like, especially how the female body, like goes about like its business and you know bearing children and everything like I think it was in like Genesis after Adam and Eve were like pushed out of the Garden of Eden, like God basically like was like, well now like you're, you know, you're full of sin, so like this is what's gonna happen to you, just so you guys know. Like childbirth is gonna be freaking mess and you're gonna have pains and like all this stuff. So like it wasn't meant to be so gruesome and so painful, but it was like because of that like taintedness like that had happened, like because of the original fall. Like that's why we have like that kind of stuff. There's always the scientific reasons too, but like I just always find those kinds of things fascinating with every culture, like every lore and stuff.
Right, how they like originally go back to explain why our bodies do the things that they do.
Yeah, and like it's really cool to see like something that wasn't in my schooling at all because I was homeschooled. Was you know, the original instincts of like hunters and gatherers and stuff like that, and the need for that kind of stimulation because of like the original roles that people had back then. And then, you know, we've been also watching, because Cassidy is Irish, we've been watching Celtic lore videos, and like it's really fascinating to see how like even like the myths and legends like based on you know, different landforms and gods and tribes, like how it all like came together and like what kind of stories they would form, and how a lot of it like kind of weirdly makes sense. Like you can see like how either someone, you know, made up the story on the fly, or like maybe it actually happened, you don't know.
Right, or it's feasible enough that it makes sense, like, or it's like it's an abstraction of something that did happen at some point, like a tale told, you know, somebody's D&D version of something that happened, spun around a million times through stories and mythologized, you might say.
I actually have a book of like lores, myths, and legends that I've been meaning to pick up, just because like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really weird for someone who's also really fascinated by like psychology and like the science of like all of that. Like I have like both sides, I think, because of like my raising and like the person I've turned out to be like after all of that.
Yeah, Christianity has a very specific role in like the shaping of American lives. It feels constantly.
Yeah, it's really freaking terrible how many awful people there are that identify themselves as Christian.
Yeah.
When their actions, like, they're not serving the same God I am. Like, this is not right at all.
Yeah,
and it's awful.
Yeah, like I came up the same way, but kind of like a cruising in by default, and kind of like this is what the family's always done, and then eventually once everyone just kind of stopped, you know, like, oh, nobody really cares about this, and then you're no longer we don't no longer need to use CCD as daycare for you, so
yeah.
You just like now you're like, oh well, nobody really minded that much, and I feel like it gets a bad rap. A lot of it, I think, has to do with Americans being very loud and very pushy.
Yeah.
And then when you combine that with like, this is the thing I care the most about, and it happens to be a structure of belief that I want to force on you.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a whole mess, but
yeah. Like there's this like infamous church that is like in our area.
Oh, okay.
They go like to different colleges. They go to different like campuses and cities, and they just set up camp with like a bunch of like like picket signs and whatever, and megaphones, just saying that everyone is going to hell. And
oh wow,
like,
that
they
is
should repent, and like they literally have like these like, you know,
they have the double signs, like
yeah.
those huge signs in each arm.
Yep. And,
okay.
It's awful.
Where did they get those?
I was like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
What is the point? Like, you're not gonna get anyone to like approach you and be like, wow, you seem really insightful. I want to know more about like the God you serve. Like,
right.
What? No,
I want to know more about.
Happen.
I would like you to tell me why I'm going to hell, and could I avoid this, or is there a turning back?
I need an itemized list of everything I've ever done that is leading me to go to hell.
Yeah. Can I just buy indulgences? Do you still doing those? Just kind of work my way through that.
It's awful. Like, no, people are going to be immediately turned off by it. Like, yeah. You're calling, like, nobody likes to be called out on their, like, shit, for one thing.
Right.
But then when you're calling them out for, like, stuff that, like, you're just, like, just assuming that they do, like, it's just awful. Like, you're gonna immediately have that reaction of, like, ew, go away. Like,
yeah. Now, as a pastor's child, can I ask you a secret, perhaps uncover a secret to this? Those double signs, are those homemade, or is there a place that makes them? Those famous going to hell double signs that I think about, because there's like a uniformity to them.
I honestly wouldn't know. Like, my dad is he
more relaxed.
He is definitely a lot more relaxed. He's become a lot better than he was when I was growing up. Because when I was growing up, the only thing I had ever heard about trans people was because it wasn't in my schooling for obvious biased reasons. But the only thing I had ever heard was when Target was trying to make like all gender bathrooms or whatever. Like, it was just open for like anyone. And my parents were like super against it because of like, oh, like we can't send our kids in there because like there could be predators and everything. And like they mentioned like the friggin' like awful horror stories that like are rarely true about like, oh, trans women like being in the bathroom to prey on little girls.
I just want to pee.
Like, it's just so stupid.
Right.
But like my dad has gotten a lot more relaxed with that. It's it's something that he doesn't necessarily understand because he still calls it a choice, like, for me.
Yeah.
But he's at least supportive and he loves me, and you know, checks up on me and everything. But when it comes to like those like those signs and everything, I'd imagine they got them like printed somewhere,
Yeah.
and make them themselves. But it's just awful. Like,
Yeah, it's just,
that same church like pointed at me and called me a whore. Like, the pastor's wife specifically pointed at me and called me a whore.
well, you shouldn't have been walking so close to them. You're in their splash zone.
It's so awful.
Yeah.
If you hadn't been showing ankle, maybe everything would have been fine.
The fun, I was showing like some like shin, I guess.
Were you walking around like some sort of painted Jezebel?
At the time, I had bleached blonde hair. Yeah,
unnatural.
Down to my shoulders. I was wearing a T-shirt that had
whoa,
an ASL interpreting joke on it.
The T-shirt is already way too far.
And then
only allow frocks.
I was wearing capris and then sneakers with like white tube socks.
Did the tube socks go all the way?
Covered.
But did the tube socks meet the capris, or is there still some leg available?
No, there was leg.
And it was all 100% cotton, right? Otherwise, you're going to hell.
What the churches around me seem pretty chill. They've got a lot of those, like, at least the majority of them that I've passed by have that, like, hey, we accept everyone around here.
That's cool.
I think they've even flown like not the newest updated version of the pride flag with the fun triangle and everything, but like the classic rainbow.
Yeah, the church that I'm going to, actually they are flying the classic rainbow pride flag, along with a Black Lives Matter flag and a flag that just has planet Earth on it.
Yeah.
To like represent like the three like the three things that the church like wants to focus on, because like it's about like accepting everyone, no matter if they're a part of the LGBTQ community, no matter if they're a minority, like literally everyone. And
it's almost if
Earth is up there, like because we're trying to be like ecologically like friendly and mindful and everything.
It's almost if they're preaching a doctrine of forgiveness and acceptance.
Right? It's so weird. It's like, if only like there was someone who like came down from heaven itself and like did that same thing that we could like model our lives after.
And then went away for a little while and then came back like a few days later.
Yeah, like maybe like 3 days. Like that's not too many.
Maybe if there was a fellow who made like a fun rock opera about him, we could learn about him.
Yeah. Darn. Too bad it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Oh well. I remember when I went to a convention, kind of like in that kind of like the COVID slump that we had for like that good month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy who had like one of those street carts, and he had like the most recent, like the triangle pride flag, and it was just next to, literally touching the Blue Lives Matter American flag, and I was like, to this dude, none of this shit matters. He's like, oh, ideology. He's just like, hey, they all worth money to me, buddy.
Yeah, it's literally just getting money from everybody.
Like the people selling them, they're like, no, we swear no allegiance. We swear allegiance to the dollar. They're like, I'm like, all these flags come from the same factories, right? it's all marketing and money all the way down.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? You know what? Speaking of money all the way down, what we're also spinning down is this show. Can you believe it's been an hour already?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I could talk forever. I'm an extrovert when it comes to like one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't, and then I was like, I joined drama to have a thing on my resume or whatever, and then I was like, had 5 roles, and then I'm hosting this show, and I was like, I'm kind of back and forth, where it's like I want to be left alone 90% of the time, but if I can talk to people, I'll just go on forever.
Oh, yeah.
But no.
There's always something to talk about.
Yes, right, and you always find something new to talk about. If you have two people who love to talk, then those people never shut up.
Oh, yeah.
And they just bounce back and forth forever. But not to get caught in this trap that I always get caught in, where I say, hey, let's wrap it up, and then I talk for another 20 minutes.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, this show
you
is...
say goodbye.
Yes. This show is the epitome of hey, the convention's over for the day, let's all hang out, and then let's leave, and then no one actually leaves, and then everyone just hangs...
Is that the sun?
Yeah, right. Everyone hangs out for way too long, and they're like, oh, yeah, let's leave, and then everyone thinks about going, and other people have time, but they're like, oh, the conversation keeps going. But you know what? This time, I'm bringing the conversation to a stop. We're shutting...
Full stop.
Not a full stop, but a rolling stop. The kind of stop that would get me denied my driver's license the first time I tried to take it.
My driver's test actually went fine. I did the rolling stop, and she was like, you're driving just like you've been driving for years. Here's your license.
Oh, wait a minute. What? Okay.
No!
Late breaking news. Okay, so... The film Bible, or whatever you want to call it, of Jodorowsky's Dune. Somebody claims to have just purchased it for £2.6 million, and they're going to make the book public. I thought I already got that PDF of that, but it might have just been a part of it. I don't remember.
Never read it.
Crazy.
But they also have other messages about we want to make an animated limited series or whatever, and allow for derivative projects. Or I guess that's what all the money was spent for. Because I thought I had a PDF at some point of his whole film Bible for that Dune. But anyway, that was a weird sidebar of something I just saw on Twitter.com. I really I don't know if that movie ever would have been good or if it ever would have actually been made. But it's an interesting thing to hear him talk about. Jodorowsky's Dune, that is. It's a real shame about anyway. I almost tripped myself into talking.
That's why I was saying no.
Yeah, I almost tricked myself into my brain. Where if I can go to Jodorowsky, I can start talking about how they're going to make that Inkle movie, and everyone kept talking about Jodorowsky's Inkle, and it's like, buddy, listen, people care about the Inkle because Mobius did the art for it. And that's the main draw to that book. But anyway, Mobius is good. That's the stance of Indiepocalypse. The bold stance. Jean Giraud. Or Giraud. Does he have an N? I don't remember. Because I always, I, like everyone else, always simply calls him Mobius. No, it's Jean Giraud. To the best of my Frenchness, too. Anyway. I like him. The bold official take of Indiepocalypse is, I like Mobius. I think he makes good art. I think I like that that era of European science fiction style art of that hyper detailed, and I like how you can see it. You can see a lot to the average. I realize Mobius is maybe feels like everyone should know him, but his work has been largely unavailable. But if you look at Studio Ghibli, has a lot of Mobius inspiration inside of it. Their designs, especially Nausicaa, is very Mobius and adjacent.
Nausicaa?
Yeah. Of the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah.
Very Mobius. All that stuff looks Mobius as hell. All the weapon designs and the ships and the suits and everything. I
haven't watched that one. My siblings really like that one. I don't really... I have a very specific type of Studio Ghibli movie that I really like. I like the... My Neighbor Totoro, Secret World of Arrietty, Ponyo, Spirited Away. Howl's Moving Castle is the most technological one that I really like, but most of the ones that I like are very, very fantasy, lighthearted, almost like a children's story kind of thing.
Yeah. those are most of those are more chill up. I think one of my go-tos, I think I watched a lot of them at one point, and one of my top tiers was I really like Whisper of the Heart, which is not fantasy at all. It's just
I've heard of that one.
It's one of the non Miyazaki Ghiblis. I forget who directed Whisper of the Heart, but it's a slice of life story sort of thing. But anyway, see, we're talking about.
We did it.
We did it again.
Oops, I did it again.
We talked about. Anyway, he named one of his children Nazca also, Mobius that is.
Oh, cool.
Because they were pals. I think him and Otomo hung out with it. There's a listen. We don't have time to talk about the French-Japanese comics connection and everything, about the scene that happened in the late '90s. I think Kan Takahama and all those people. Save this for the time where I finally find an excuse to make a comics podcast. Which I will one of these days, because I start to trick people to talking to me about comic books, and I hope the new Urusei Yatsura has got people so I can talk about my Takahashi feelings. But anyhow, shutting the show down before I start talking about Meisani Koku and everything. What have you got? Listen, it's the end of the show. So at the end of our shows, we ask, what have you got to promote? What have you got to plug? Either one of you can go first. Both of you can go together. It's entirely dealer's
Just at the same time. Just
at the exact same time over one of another.
I know we're both still working on the complete edition of Invasion, which takes the 2-page rule set and actually makes a fully fleshed out game. It's not going to be a huge manual by any stretch of the imagination, but it's going to be about 45-ish pages and contain all the information you need to actually run campaigns, sessions, and a little bit of color and lore for the town we set the game in. We've also got a podcast we just started recording, and we don't really have a date for when that's going to launch, because we got to get a couple recorded, get the editing done, so that we can get out something succinct and good.
But it's going to be called Because.
And spelled normally?
Because.
Yeah, literally just because with an ellipses.
Okay.
I'm always writing some story or working on some game, and never know which ones are going to pop up on Itch or any of those sites, because I really just get poured all my passion into one thing, and if it comes out, it comes out.
Now, if one were to find this work, where would they look for it?
Well, there's the itch.io page for me, which I believe is just CA McKinney. I have a similarly named one over on Vocal for some short stories I've written. The podcast is going to be on Anchor, which releases on Spotify.
Yeah, and I publish this on Anchor. You can kind of just put it everywhere.
Yeah.
I also have an art Instagram. It's Nova Star Art. On Instagram. It's spelled the exact same way as my name on the Invasion 2-pager. So it's just Nova Star and Art. And so you can see a bunch of kind of sneak peeks on what some of the aliens are gonna look like in the monster manual thing that we're working on.
And if you're unfamiliar, that's how you would think of spell, except Star has 2 R's for those just listening. Sorry, I always have to respect the audio medium and recognize that people go, I couldn't find it. And you go, I spelled it for you.
Right now, my icon is literally a picture that I drew of Gur from Invader Zim. I think he's riding pig.
That's from what I remember of the Hot Topics that I'd gone to in the aughts. That's usually what he rides.
Yeah, he's just riding a pig,
now
having a good time.
Now, did you grow up with Zim? One minor sidebar. Did you grow up with Zim, or did you come to Zim later in life? Like,
I came to Zim later in life. I have seen clips of Invader Zim, but it wasn't until recently that I saw the whole series.
Okay.
And I severely kin with Gur.
Because I was wondering if, like, Yonan Vasquez, people still connected with him, or if you just had to be there at the time.
Nah, I actually got the inspiration to really watch the series because a coworker of mine, who also has an art page, she gets a lot of her inspiration from him and his work. So, like, it was just too good to resist.
I've thought about going back to it because, I mean, listen, at the time, the people who really liked him were the most obnoxious people in my life. And I was like, well, if they're annoying, the things they like must be annoying.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, my first real time watching it was because of Netflix's movie Into the Florpus.
Oh right, I forgot they forgot to keep making like
I hate what they did to Professor Membrane. He was fat. He was chunky. The art style for him annoyed me because Professor Membrane actually kind of helped inspire something for some screenplays I wrote. And he was this tall, overly dramatic character, and now he was this short, kind of like squat character that was still overly dramatic, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I liked the beanpole.
But yeah, it's a really good series that the character diversity, like, we draw a lot of inspiration from in general. Gur has just, I've always been emotionally attached to him since I first heard like audios of some of his lines literally on TikTok. Like, I think that was probably my first real like time hearing anything from the show.
Well, then if you're hearing him on TikTok, I'm glad to announce that Zim is still going strong.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Still capturing the hearts of teens all over the world.
Netflix needs to bring it back.
Yeah.
I have I think I got it from a thrift shop, some weird third bonus DVD from one of the box sets or something. That's just like in a pile of stuff. But what about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac? Have you dipped into that?
I own all the comics.
What if they... Anyway, now I'm thinking about... Okay, I'm going to do some Google searches in a second and go... And I wonder if I'm going to be like, wow, this is actually very cool stuff. But... and I was just like... In my teens, I was not in the right spot for it. Like... Because I think there's like... No! Okay, so... For my part, I will say, hey, you should buy Indiepocalypse. I think it's good. Issue 21, if you buy that, some of these nice people who've been on the show may get some money at some point in the future.
It's true.
I really wish Itch had like rev share on like store projects and not just like bundles, you know? Because then I wouldn't have to wait until like it reaches a certain amount. Because if I don't, especially when I send like international guests, I either have to make international contributors wait, or I have to like, get dinged by a billion fees constantly.
Ugh. So,
anyway, itch.io, put rev share on stuff. Also Patreon. If you go to indiepocalypse.com/Patreon, you can subscribe to this thing and get it once a week. Get the show of the week afterward, the Monday afterwards. You'll get this show. Otherwise, you gotta wait like a month because you gotta put something behind the paywall, I'm very into. There's they've been doing interesting stuff with like paywalled podcasts and like the exodus from like networks, like your networks, your Max Funds and your Earwolves and Stitchers, and people are like, well, what if I just sell it on my own website? What if we make a limited miniseries and sell it for like $10, and you get a series of podcast episodes. And it's like, that's neat. I like that idea. I've bought a couple of them, and I very much enjoyed them. And it's like, I remember there was a time when you're like, oh, I'm so glad everything's in one spot now, and we're dreading everything going, the time we dreaded everything splitting up into separate channels. But now I'm like, maybe that's better, actually. That, like, not everything is in just one giant Netflix puddle. But, anyway, indiepocalypse.com /submit to submit your game. indiepike.com/submit. If you have a website and you are affiliated with independent art in any way, whether you produce it, whether you run a community around it, whether you critique it, or any sorts of things, if you write about it, submit your thing. I want to make a big page of links so that people can be like, hey, look, we have websites, and we don't have to all be on the 5 or so social media websites that exist, Let's get our own websites back. They're cool. They're easy to make. I'm selling also. I'm going to pick up a consignment shop for games. I forget what I call it. I think that's pizzaprinks.com/consignment. For when I do physical events, I will sell people's games there as like a consignment shop to try and hey, I go to punk flea markets and sell stuff there. That might be the right place for your games. And what if I go to PAX and I just hey, you pay $0 basically to get your game there. Anyway, go there too. That's it. That's all my stuff. I guess I probably got other stuff. I got too many plates, and once I've got all the plates spinning perfectly, I'm like, what if I added another plate to this? Just because I crave the challenge of it all.
Yeah. Like us making this game, and now we're making podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
So all this different stuff.
You have to, if you once you get too good at something, you're like, the challenge is gone. The spark is gone from this relationship I had with this project. I need to kindle a new project.
That's why I'm constantly bouncing back and forth, learning different languages.
Yeah.
I have 3 that I'm juggling with, and when I get bored of one, I move on to the next.
Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm laser focused on learning Japanese where I can. And occasionally I think I should re-up my Spanish. My Spanish is very functional, but when you never use it, it kind of decays.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough that I can kind of fumble my way through Spanish where I need to.
Yes, I'm getting about the same. I'm very functional when it comes to Spanish. I'm fluent in American Sign Language, and I'm learning Korean right now. And next up is French when I get the Korean alphabet down.
Yes, no. I mean, most of my training is literally just kanji training, and I don't really have any grammar because it's I gotta learn a whole new alphabet. Also, I haven't I haven't sat down to I like Spanish. It only has a couple new letters.
Yeah.
And I still could never do the double R thing. I never.
No, I cheat, and I how when you gargle and you use your uvula and everything, I do that, and it works. I fool people, but
right.
I still can't roll my R's with my tongue.
And it was frustrating because I was good at it. I was oh wow, I'm good at this language. I'm passing all these courses, but I can't speak this very specific thing. I just never. Anyway, we're shutting it down. One last. We're doing it again. We're doing it again.
Oh shit! Here we go again.
Ah shit! Here we go again. Indeed, I tried playing that game, but that's me starting again, and I'm not going to start again. I'm gonna find Fubar. Here's Fubar. Gonna leave it as I always leave the show, which is with the track "Imposter Syndrome," as it always is. I didn't do any breaks, so I didn't do any of my radio from the break we cut from. But anyway, it's "Imposter Syndrome" on our way out. Cass, Nova, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to have you. We had to, as you can tell by the 7 p.m. schedule, we had to really work things around to get you here. But I like to work things around to try to accommodate everyone to where I can.
Definitely appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate having you here. But anyway, I'm gonna hit this transition button, and that's gonna make the song play. Goodbye, everyone.